Random House Audio presents The Pigeon Pie Mystery by Julia Stuart. Read for you by Hannah Curtis. We look at other nations and we pity them because they're not a little patch on dear old England. Their trades, their arts, their everything are full of faults and flaws. So different to clever model England. Model England, Harry Dacre and Edgar Ward, 1892. Chapter 1. An Elephant, a Funeral, and More Bad News. Monday, March 22nd, 1897. As the hail bounced on the carriage roof, Mink suddenly wondered whether she ought to buy mourning knickers. She thought of asking her maid, who had wept for the dead Maharaja almost as much as she had. But the sight of Pooki's stockingless feet emerging from the bottom of her sari changed her mind. She turned back to the window to distract herself from the loathsome task ahead of her. Wiping away the condensation, she watched the shoppers on Regent Street, the gritty downpour toppling the ostrich feathers on their elegant hats. The horses began to slow and came to a halt outside Jay's, the mourning emporium. The princess had walked past it during countless shopping trips, but never once imagined needing to go in. As she waited for the carriage door to open, she fiddled with the buttons on her gloves, avoiding the window display. But George, the second footman, whose woeful height and lamentable calves would normally have excluded him from such a position, took so long she wondered whether he had forgotten her. Finally the door opened. Lifting up her skirts, she climbed out, determined not to be sold a pair of mutes, for the funeral attendants hired by the bereaved for their doleful expressions had a reputation for unabashed drunkenness. A doorbell never tinkled so mournfully as the one at Jay's. A lump was sure to form in even a hangman's throat at the sound of its pitiful wail. The princess and the maid stood silently in the entrance, shrouded in black drapery, a vase of white lilies engulfing them in the politest scent of death. As they waited to be served, a huddle of pale-faced female assistants, dressed in the hue of sorrow, stared at them. Those at the back stood on their toes and gazed with envy at Mink, whose arresting looks were the result of an Indian father and an English mother. Her long dark hair was pinned and padded to form a high cushion round her head, and her straw hat was trimmed with daffodils and chiffon, which, they noticed, perfectly matched her green cape jacket. Those at the front stared at her emerald earrings, some of the few family jewels the British hadn't stolen. Added to the colourful spectacle was an older, dark-skinned Indian lady's maid in native dress, a black plait hanging down her back. She was so skinny, she seemed to have been eroded by years of persistent wind. The hush was broken by a sniff, and the princess handed Pooki a silk handkerchief, which she took with grateful bony fingers. Suddenly, as if descended from the overcrowded heavens above, a man appeared, dressed in the dullest of black, for only tears were allowed to shine at Jay's. He appeared to be executing the humblest of bows, but too long passed before he straightened himself up, and it was soon apparent that he was in a permanent state of humility. His cinnamon hair, the only hint of gaiety in the establishment, was respectfully sleeked to his head. He looked up at his customer, from his near-folded stance, with the pitiful eyes of a drover's dog. "Ratikins is the name, ma'am," he said, clutching his limp hands in front of him. "How may I be of assistance?" The princess looked at him uneasily, and replied that she needed some mourning wear as soon as possible. "First of all, ma'am," he said, "may I offer you the deepest of sympathies? Some of the lesser mourning establishments may tell you of their regrets, but I assure you that here at Jay's, condolences are at their most profound. If I may inquire, at what hour did our loved one depart?" The princess thought back to the previous day, when the butler broke the news. "Sometime yesterday afternoon," she replied, her stomach like lead. Mr. Ratikins scrabbled for his watch chain, and with the flutter of bloodless fingers, stopped the time accordingly. Slowly he raised his red-rimmed eyes to her once more. "A tragedy," he said. The assistants continued to stare. As silently as he'd arrived, Mr. Ratikins headed down a mahogany-panelled corridor, which the Princess took as an indication to follow. Passing through a doorway, he took up his position behind a counter. A one-eyed ginger cat lay on top of it, a stray the shopkeeper fed out of solidarity for its colour. He swiftly removed it and asked, "If I may inquire, which of our loved ones has left us?" Mink swallowed. "My father." "A tragedy," he repeated, his eyes downcast. The Princess sat down on a chair next to the counter, clutching her green handbag. "I'm not sure how long the period of mourning is for a parent these days," she said. "None of the women's magazines seem to be in agreement. For a parent, we at Jay's recommend a year, 6 months in crepe, 3 in black, and 3 in half mourning," he continued with the speed of a mantra. "For grandparents, it's 6 months, 2 in silk with moderate crepe, 2 in black without crepe, and 2 in half mourning. For brothers and sisters, it's also 6 months, but we advise 3 in crepe, 2 in black and 1 in half mourning. For an uncle or an aunt, 2 months, no crepe, black to be worn the whole time. For a great uncle or aunt, it's 6 weeks, 3 in black and 3 in half mourning. For a first cousin, it's 4 weeks, black. 3 weeks for a second cousin, if you liked 'em." "I see," replied the Princess, blinking. "Heliotrope and other mauves are, of course, still very favourable colours for half-mourning, and grey has never gone out of fashion. It is, after all, a most fetching colour for the bereaved. Complements the pallor." "Tell me," said Mink, "is a widow still expected to wear mourning for 2.5 years, while all a widower does is put on an armband for 3 months and remarries whenever he pleases?" "Something like that, ma'am." Mr. Ratikins then rubbed his fingers until they shone. There were skirts and mantles in the latest fashions ready for immediate wear, he said, and bodices made to measure in a few hours. He hauled down a roll of black cloth from behind him and pulled out the end for inspection. "This is what I'd recommend for you, ma'am, bombazine. And we use Courtaulds crepe. It will withstand any amount of rain," he said. He glanced at Pooki and lowered his voice. "Bombazette is best for the servants. It's inferior and therefore cheaper. I wouldn't want to waste your money." With none of the usual pleasure she derived from sitting at a shop counter, Mink chose from the selection of shoes, gloves, mantles, bonnets, toques, hairpins, fans, aigrettes, boas, parasols, bags, purses, mittens, umbrellas, and antimacassars. All the colour of crows. A young female assistant, her hair scraped back into an unyielding bun, took the place of Mr. Ratikins in order to broach the delicate matter of underwear. Instantly she recognised the Princess from the newspapers, which for years had been captivated by the oriental glamour of the young woman born and raised in England. The female columnists extolled her outfits, quoted her calls for suffrage, and longed for an invitation to her all-women shooting parties, when the laughter startled the grouse more than the beaters. Opening several drawers, the dry-mouthed assistant draped on the counter a selection of white chemises, drawers, and under-petticoats, all trimmed with black ribbon. "They're from Paris, Your Highness," she said, glancing at the Princess's earrings. Mink looked at them. "I'm not of the opinion that everything from Paris is automatically desirable," she replied. "And anyway, no one will know what I've got on underneath." "You will, Your Highness," said the girl, fingering the lingerie with bitten nails. So will I, Your Highness.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?